Hi everyone, Shika here with NarcDojo, where we discuss pathological narcissism, spirituality, personal development, and raising your awareness. If you were to tell me a couple of years ago that I would be on the internet teaching about narcissism or consciousness or personal development, I probably would not believe you. However, in hindsight, I can see how this all makes sense. Today's video was inspired by a comment left on the channel, and Dr. Love writes, I'm wondering what made you interested in the subject of narcissism. I spoke to a doctor the other day and he said I wouldn't find anyone who specializes in narcissistic abuse because the DSM doesn't work that way. Him being a psychiatrist, I believe the reason many doctors steer away is because they use the tactics. And I'm wondering how it got out to the masses and why he refused to want to talk about it. So first up, I am not a psychologist or a psychotherapist. I came into my understanding of narcissism, or what the clinical community is calling narcissism, through understanding consciousness. Because technically narcissism is unconsciousness. I was introduced to the term narcissism, I want to say, during COVID, so maybe about 2020. However, I already understood what narcissism was because, again, I understand what consciousness is. And if you understand consciousness, then you technically understand the opposite, which is unconsciousness. And through reading through the clinical material, I noticed that what they have essentially is a book of unconsciousness. So I have been reading since I was a teenager and now I am in my 30s. So technically I've been reading for half of my life, or maybe more than half of my life. Understand that when it comes to narcissism, what the clinical community is calling narcissism, and also in this cluster that they're calling the cluster B, which also includes BPD, HPD, and what you may commonly call sociopathy or psychopathy, which they're now calling antisocial personality disorder, ASPD. And technically most of what you find in the DSM, and the DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Illnesses, are different degrees of a disconnection from spirit. Hence, there are different degrees of unconsciousness because you are consciousness itself. So oftentimes on the channel, you'll hear me repeat ad nauseum that you are spirit operating a human body with access to different tools such as your mind power, your willpower, and your emotions. Instead of spirit, you could say consciousness, or you could say light, light force, source energy, the watcher, the observer, prana, chi, etc. So when you understand consciousness, then you have a better perspective of how clinicians view the world, because clinicians view the world from the outside in. And if you understand consciousness, then you understand the world from the inside out. And what I mean by this is you, the consciousness, you, the spirit, use your mind to make decisions, and then you act that out in the physical realm. Then you act that out in the physical world. So understand that when you say I am, your I am should be coming from the spirit level, because again, you are spirit, you are consciousness. You have a body, you are not the body. You have a mind, you are not the mind. You have emotions, emotions are energy in motion. You have a will, you are not the will. You are consciousness. So we manifest from the non-physical to the physical, meaning that you, the spirit, use your mind to make decisions. For example, I wanted to share information about narcissism, recovering from narcissistic abuse, and growing up in a dysfunctional family. So I, the spirit, used my mind and I came up with the idea to create a TikTok channel and a YouTube channel, and this is what you're seeing in the physical world, right? We manifest from the non-physical to the physical, right? You create thoughts and eventually those thoughts turn into things in the physical world. So when you understand consciousness, you also understand that, again, we create from the non-physical to the physical. You cannot touch your spirit, you cannot touch your mind, you cannot touch your emotions, you cannot touch your willpower. And your mind is not your brain. Your brain is a physical organ that is a part of the body. Your mind is non-physical and is comprised of the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. So if we create from the non-physical to the physical, then everything that you see manifesting itself on the outside is a different degree of a disconnection from spirit. So when you take a look at clinical information or that which you may find in the DSM, then you understand that clinicians are psychopathologists. And the psyche, because clinicians are psychologists or psychotherapists, then the psyche would be a similar equivalent to what we're calling the soul here. If clinicians are psychopathologists, and pathology is the study of dis-ease or disorders, then they study the dis-eases or the disorders of the mind power, the willpower, and the emotions. So when you take a look at it, clinicians study the world from the outside in. What happens is they look at things that are manifested in the physical realm, and then they assign all of those illnesses to the area of the psyche. And you also understand that most clinicians, not all, but most clinicians do not move any further than the psyche, or what they're calling the psyche, because it's in the name of their book. They're reading from a book called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Illnesses. If most clinicians understood the area of spirit, then they probably would have named the book the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Spiritual Illnesses. I mentioned before that what you see manifests itself as mental illnesses, that which you would find in the DSM, are different degrees of disconnection from spirit. So what happens is, if people do not understand how to use their faculties, then it's going to end up in the DSM. For example, if someone has severe emotional dysregulation, then they may be diagnosed with something like bipolar, which is a mood disorder. And moods are related to the faculty of emotions. If another patient is displaying, again in the physical realm, symptoms where they can't really control themselves, or they're really obsessive, which is related to the willpower, then clinicians are going to say, maybe they have obsessive compulsive disorder. And when it comes to PDs then, which are personality disorders, then clinicians are observing phenomena that this person has severe emotional dysregulation, a dysregulation of their will, and also a dysregulation of their mind. So while this view of the world is not totally inaccurate, it is incomplete. And this is because if you've ever been entangled with a pathological narcissist, then you know that they have something that is more deeper than just a personality disorder. You are dealing with someone that does not really have a spirit. And if someone has dissociated to the point where they do not have a spirit, then technically they are dead. And I say technically because you could be spiritually dead but alive at the body level. Pathological narcissists, the Narcopaths, are very similar to what you may know as a zombie. So they are in a comatose-like state, and you really do not have access to them. And this is in part why clinicians are saying that there is no cure for narcissistic personality disorder or sociopathy, psychopathy, which they're calling ASPD, because technically the person does not exist. They are not there. So their body is moving around, and you could be talking to this person. So they have memory, and memory comes from the mind. However, you are not talking to the person because, again, we are spirit operating a human body with access to a mind, our willpower, and our emotions as tools. When it comes to pathological narcissism or narcopathy, what you're dealing with really is a psycho-spiritual illness because the person is not there, or we could say that they're not where they should be. At one level, you're dealing with people that are identifying with their mind, so they believe that they are their mind, so they believe that they are their ego. And that in itself doesn't make much sense because, again, you're a spirit operating a human body. However, for narcopaths, they believe that they are their mind. So you really are dealing with someone that is losing their mind, but they're not only losing their mind, you're dealing with people that are losing their souls because they disconnected from their spirit. If someone disconnects from their spirit, then this leaves a black hole or a vacuum. It essentially leaves a portal for negative energy forms, negative energy beings to gain access to the body and gain access to the different faculties. Black holes do what black holes do, which is consume light, and spirit is light. Again, your light or light force consciousness operating a human body with access to different tools. If you were also in a relationship with a pathological narcissist, then you'll also know that they drain the life out of you. Now, because pathological narcissists lost their spirit, and this spirit has been lost since childhood, and we can know this by testing the actual age of the narcissist. So physically, you could be dealing with someone that's in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, etc. But at their core, you'll see where most of them behave between the ages of about 5 and 12 years old. That 5 to 12-year-old, again, is the original spirit, is the original consciousness, the original being. Now, what you're dealing with today is not the original consciousness of the person. So you could really think that they died a very long time ago and they were overwritten by another consciousness. They got overwritten or overpowered or oppressed by a dark being or malevolent energy. Malevolent energy beings are beings in their own right because they have the ability now, because they're operating through a human body, to access their mind and access their willpower and also their emotions, which is why pathological narcissists only have negative emotions. They're based in shame and they can't move past pride. When it comes to their willpower, then if the original captain abandoned their ship, then you're dealing with someone that cannot control themselves. And again, you're dealing with someone that is losing their mind because they themselves aren't the ones anymore that are controlling their minds. If most clinicians understood that narcissists did not have a spirit, then they would not be dealing with them in psychotherapy because you're not dealing with the original person. When they disconnected from their spirit in childhood, understand that this left a portal again for negative energy beings to pass through. And what you're dealing with today are those negative energy beings. There is a palpable dark force that travels with pathological narcissists, and you can call this palpable dark force demons, demonic energy, black hole energy, etc. Pathological narcissists today are walking vessels for malevolent entities. So most clinicians may not specialize in narcissistic abuse, but I'm sure there are a few around. For example, on YouTube, there's the Dr. Ramani channel, and she kind of has her niche in the narcissistic space. I think the information on narcissistic abuse kind of got out through the survivors of these toxic relationships and also different life coaches and so on. And this is in part the reason why I created this channel, because narcissistic abuse is something that I went through. And the clinical information really just did not cut it. And again, it's not that it is inaccurate, it is that it is incomplete. Narcissists hunt people down. And you're not merely dealing with someone's defensive mechanism. They have an offensive mechanism and they are plotting. Plotting takes intention. You're not dealing with people that are naive. Narcissism is not an impairment of knowledge. It is an impairment of empathy. You are dealing with highly underdeveloped souls, so they did not develop empathy. And I mean true empathy of being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. So if somebody is empathy impaired, then they will harm you and they will not feel bad about it. Oftentimes you will see where narcissists instigate drama and they will smirk when they do it. That is not from naivety. In the great words of Malidoma Some, shaman, healer, and author, he states that if you leave a person in an adolescent state, then they will act militaristically. And that is how pathological narcissists behave, militaristically. They are very volatile and dangerous people, and they are always plotting your demise. Who are pathological narcissists? Pathological narcissists are people that have accepted an evil spirit or spirits. Whoever you thought they were, unless you're dealing with someone and their name is Tom or Mary, understand that you really do not have access to Tom or Mary. What you are interacting with are evil spirits. People, I really want you to think about this. And think about indigenous cultures, or what you would call tribal cultures. People that are not really in the Western world. In indigenous cultures, Native American, Native African people, Native people from Borneo, the Aboriginals from Australia, and so on. In their different villages, in their different nations, they do not have psychologists or psychotherapists. What they would have is some kind of shaman or spirit doctor or healer. Understand then that psychologists and psychotherapists today do not have all of the information that you need, because most psychologists or psychotherapists do not study the area of the spirit. At the end of the narcissistic relationship that I was in, I knew for a fact that this person was overwritten by an evil spirit. I had no idea of what mental illnesses were. However, I knew that something was off in her spirit. Where there should be a spirit, there was nothing. And at the end, I could feel that she herself did not have an energy signature. The person that I was with had all 9 traits that you see listed here on the NPD diagnosis that you can find in the DSM. Which means that if she were to be diagnosed, then she would be a narcopath. It is where narcissism and antisocial personality disorder, that which you may call sociopathy or psychopathy, meet. I'll say it again. If you believe that you are with a pathological narcissist, whoever they were no longer exists. They are somewhere off in the underworld, somewhere off in the sunken place. They are somewhere else. They are not here. What you're dealing with today are those evil spirit or spirits that are now in control of their bodies. So how do you heal a narcissist? They need deliverance. They need to be delivered from those evil spirits. And deliverance itself is also not guaranteed. And this is why all of the coaches here on YouTube and TikTok, etc., whether they have the spiritual information or not, they'll tell you that you need to leave, you need to go, no contact, or you'll hear me state that you need to get the courage to walk away and stay away. Pathological narcissists exist in victim abuser consciousness. Again, they're based in their shame and they're unable to move past their pride. They only have negative emotions, which means that all they have the ability to do today is to abuse you. The captain has abandoned their ship. The driver is in the back seat. So understand that you are on the Titanic. And in this relationship, especially an intimate relationship, you need to safely make your exit. You cannot love a narcissist and a narcissist cannot love you back. All of your love, kindness, and compassion is going to evaporate right there at the 3rd dimension. Also, narcissists do not want your love. They want your subservience. They want your attention. They want your admiration. They want your validation. Narcissists want a bootlicker and a butt kisser. They want a slave. And in a narcissistic entanglement, understand that if they are the abuser, then you're going to be the victim. They want to be master. Hence, you are going to be their slave. You know exactly who narcissists are. They are antagonists. They are the villain in any movie that you watch. Do not be tricked. As always, good people, stay vigilant, stay alert. Give yourself the love, kindness, and compassion that you were giving to the narcissist. Go ahead and pour that back into yourself so that you can raise your vibration. And as always, if you appreciate the content, please give us a like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions or feedback, you can go ahead and leave that in the comment section. And I'll see you in the next video.